Alright, quick update on green Satoshi token. So, like a lot of altcoins that I've been covering in the past day or so, green Satoshi token and pretty much all the altcoins right now are really in like a stable coin status where they're not moving at all. I'll show you with ApeCoin as well. I mean, all of these altcoins have the exact same pattern where they've literally been converging to the side for multiple days now. So it is getting pretty boring, but this does mean that we're probably getting ready for a big move. You can see the EMA ribbons are squeezing as we're getting rejected, so this is indicative, in my opinion, that a big move is going to be coming very, very soon. And I think the move is unfortunately going to be to the downside. Let's talk about that in a sec. Let's zoom out to the higher time frames and work our way down. On the weekly time frame, we've had just tons and tons of selling volume in the past couple of weeks. You can see almost 10 million sold, 7 million sold, and 3 million green Satoshi tokens have been, bought and sold, but predominantly sold on this weekly candle. Bear in mind, at this moment in time, it's Thursday, so this is probably going to get larger and larger as we do come into the rest of the week. This could potentially rival the previous candle that we had, if not equate to pretty much exactly what we had, and it's not a good sign. It's a good sign that we're seeing volume drop, but that in itself, when you look at the market cap is peanuts compared to a lot of these other altcoins and some of these other move to earns. So I do think volume is dropping because there's potentially not as many sellers, there's not as many holders in the market. So obviously to have sellers, you would have to have someone who holds it in the first place sell, and it kind of seems like a lot of people are leaving these move to earns. Like I've been saying in my videos, these move to earns, we were here to capitalize on the hype of these, but I don't necessarily think these are going to be here to stay. I've said this in almost all of my videos on these, but I think these move to earn tokens are here for a short time, they're here for a good time, they're not going to be here for a long time, so be very, very careful if you plan on holding these for the long term. You can see, trend lines have not really changed a lot. In fact, if we extrapolate this over, you can actually see recently in the past couple of days, we've been getting rejected. This is almost like a falling wedge type pattern, slightly ugly one. Nonetheless, it is still perfectly valid, and it does look like we are falling to the downside of this at this moment in time. If we look on the daily, the squeeze bomb is clearly capitulating very heavily to the downside. We're losing a tiny bit of momentum in the past couple of days, but that is really because we've been trending sideways underneath these EMA ribbons. And if you look at the lower time frames, you can already see that the squeeze bomb, which is our momentum indicator down here, this is already moving to the downside. We're already seeing, more volume stepping in since we've been in this accumulation range. You can really see, once the bottom was found, this was when the peak volume was done. After then, we've just been trending up and sideways. We did literally nothing but trend sideways since the 13th of May. So it's been coming on for a good week now, and it's getting really, really boring. But the good thing about this is that the longer and longer we lollygag below this short-term moving average, it means the short-term moving average is really not going to move too much because we're right beneath it. But this long-term moving average is going to taper in and in and in. And you can see, if we potentially long this off for another couple of days, this EMA ribbon is going to be extremely tight. And the EMA ribbons almost work a tiny bit like Bollinger Bands. If you've watched YouTubers do TA on Bollinger Bands, they always say, when the bands are tightening, you're getting ready for an exponential move to the upside or the downside. I noticed that a lot with the EMA ribbons as well, and a lot of the times, because EMA ribbons, depending on what time frame you're looking at, a lot of the time they already tell you what they know. They are lagging indicators. So for example, when you can see, when we get these huge waves down here, it normally means the bottom is already in the local term. You get huge waves, starts to taper up, that normally means the bottom is in the local term. This doesn't mean we're not going to go lower. This is, we've clearly gone lower after kind of coming up. But the point of the matter is, you can see, look, the bands squeezed here, and we got a huge move to the downside. The bands were pretty big here, and this is when we came back into the bands. You can see we've been lollygagging on the bands, and now the bands are once again getting very thin. So I think green Satoshi token is probably going to have a big move very soon, and I think we should also look at the green metaverse chart. Even though I'm going to do a separate video on this, it's become very evident to me recently that the chart on green Satoshi token is copying what green metaverse does to the teeth, but it does it a little bit more euphorically. And if we look at what's going on Green Metaverse token, we're still really getting chopped up. I mean, we've broken bearish out of this this pennant. I mean, depending on how you want to draw this, because I don't think you can draw it like that. So this was a really ugly breakout, but we are now heading to the downside. I do think the breakdown for Green Metaverse token is more likely. So yeah, it seems like all of these move to earns are going to capitulate at some point very soon. I've been talking about this because I actually think that Bitcoin is about to break down from this triangle pattern. I've been talking about this for, you know, a fairly decent amount of time now, at least a week and a half or so. I've definitely been talking about it frequently in my Bitcoin videos, but I think we're in this kind of phase that we were in 2017 at this moment in time, and I think the bottom is very near. Believe me, I'm not waiting to buy the dip on Bitcoin. I've been buying Bitcoin at 34, I bought it at 30, I bought it at 29, I bought it at 25.5. I've been buying the dip all the way down, and I plan on buying more at 22 if we do go down there, which is where I see us coming. And I was here in this capitulation of 2018. Believe me, it wasn't an enjoyable thing. You know, I'd much rather say I got in on the exact bottom or something, but I got in somewhere around about this region and I survived the capitulation. So I would have done a lot better if I just entered around these dips. Obviously I was pretty new to the markets here, just coming from the stock market, so these things were very different, but nonetheless, I'm seeing all the technicals being the same. I'm seeing all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt being the same. I'm seeing greed enter into the market as soon as we see a tiny pump on the altcoins. And in my opinion, this means that we probably need to flush out the weak hands. We need to flush out the people who have just entered the cycle in the past 6 to 12 months. If you've entered the cycle in the past 12 months and you've been trading, you know, move to earn coins, you've been trading meme coins, all of these different cryptos, and you one of those type of people that say, I don't want to buy Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a slow mover and it will take me too long to make money. Those are the type of people that need to be flushed out of the market and decimated. And I hate to say it, I wish it was different. But historically speaking, these markets destroy people who have just come into them and do not manage to, you know, hold through these type of events. I honestly do think we're in this type of event, and like I said, you know, it sucks to say, but until all hope is lost, I've seen this saying a few times that until the last bull flips bearish, then the bottom is not in. And this is kind of what happened over here, where all the retail traders got absolutely capitulated, their gains got wiped out, their money got wiped out, they were all in a loss. Anyone holding altcoins got absolutely wrecked. Everyone, you know, they sold their bags for a huge loss. Bitcoin didn't do as bad as the altcoins because Bitcoin actually heavily outperformed the altcoins, and I think, considering that I think Bitcoin is going to move down, this should be a telltale sign that we should see a big move coming to the downside for Green Satoshi token. It seems like we're in a pretty brutal stance at this moment in time. Daily EMA is bearish, weeklies haven't loaded in. 4 hourly, like I said, we're really lollygagging beneath them, and we're coming down to the low once again. You know, once we took out this low, you know, it really only took us 4 hours to come down another 26% or so. So, you know, don't think that on our second leg down we can't come down another 50%. I've been talking about this 50% move for kind of since we bounced up back into these EMAs. This is now actually about a 47% move. But nonetheless, I'm going to keep it where it is. I still think we have lower to move down. Your best hope at this moment in time, in my opinion, is that Bitcoin gets a strong bounce from this descending wedge. If we do, or this falling wedge, whatever you want to call it, descending, falling, same thing. But nonetheless, your best case scenario is that Bitcoin gets another bounce up to 34,000 or so, or even if we come up really fast, you could potentially see 35, 36, depends how euphoric we get. I imagine it'd take a few days, so I'd imagine that we wouldn't really be going above the 45,000 before we do potentially capitulate, you know, one last time. Maybe, like I always say, a fake out equals a fast move in the opposite direction. Maybe we'll do something like this, where we do have that bounce, because I've been saying on the weekly time frame, we're currently putting in like our 8th red weekly candle. This is something that we've not done before, and I don't think it'd be out of the blue to bounce, come back down and have a double bottom. I don't want to make this a Bitcoin video, but this is what we've done before. You know, bottom, huge bounce, double bottom. we've done it a million, well, we haven't done it a million one times before, we don't have 1,000,001 market cycles, but in the previous market cycle we did this. Obviously this is a green Satoshi token video, but I want you to be aware that what goes on in Bitcoin, what goes on in the general markets is going to affect how green Satoshi token plays out. So in my opinion, at this moment in time, I would be heavily sitting on the sidelines. You can currently see we're kind of trending in a very, very boring range. The floor of this, which I do think we're going to break down from, is approximately $2.80. If you do see a breakdown below 280, in my opinion, it could get a lot uglier. I think we could massively capitulate. I don't think we'd be held up by fibs at that moment in time. I'm not even going to really draw on these fibs that we've got going. I think these micro fib impulses to the downside is much more kind of like what I'm looking for at this moment in time. 1.6 is all the way down at $1. That's a bit brutal. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll actually keep it on the chart so you can see. If we do break below 280, we're definitely coming down. If we don't hold up the 618 at 241, we're probably going to capitulate all the way back down to the lows, at which point, once again, you know, coming over to the daily, you can see that we would be in price discovery to the downside. This would wake the daily squeeze mom up. This would mean that we'd be exponentially pushing back to the downside once again. And most of the volume is selling volume, so, you know, I'd say the trend is your friend till the end on this one. We're clearly in a bearish stance. Bears are once again taking over at the lower time frames in the past 12 hours or so. Bitcoin is really struggling to get a strong bounce from here, and that is a warning sign, because previously you can see wick hugely bought up. Wick hugely bought up, and these were bought up quick. Like, you can see this was just a wick. This was just a wick. There was no closes. We were out of here. But what we're seeing now, we're seeing wick, and now we've got candle body. Well, we haven't had a close yet, but we're really lollygagging around this area. So I'd be very careful trading altcoins right now, like I've been saying for the past week or so. Hate to say it, but I think these altcoins are going to get decimated against Bitcoin. I think green Satoshi token is going to go lower, and that's basically all I've got for this video. I'm going to now go check out green metaverse token. So if you do want TA on both GST and GMT, check out my channel. I do provide both. That's all I've got for you. I think the move down is unfortunately more likely. I'm personally targeting this 2.618 Fibonacci. This would mean that we could be coming down to $1.48. Let's call it $1.50 as a psychological level. You can also see the massive 1.618 down here at 184. This is what we previously bounced on from, you know, I believe it was this low to this high up here, drawing at 1.6. Let's make sure this is the right one. So this was a more macro 1.618 actually. This was from this low up to this high, gives us this macro 1.618 right down here, and this seems to be where we bounced from before. I think it's very likely we'd be coming, and even in the most bullish scenario, at least backtesting 184. So there are a few targets for you. I think 184 is definitely going to get hit, but I think it's more likely we're going to come down to something a little bit more bearish like $1.50. That's all I've got for green Satoshi token. Hope you found some value in this content. As always, Cowboy out. Peace.